And I think that's why that content goes really viral, is if you create something that people would want to share. So it's a different mindset altogether. First, we need to make it for the platform, but then we want to make it so it's universal enough that other people would want to republish it on their own platform and share it. And if you can do that, right, whether it's text or image or carousel or newsletter, that's really the secret.
Influential and thought-provoking minds in marketing, sales, and business. The Business of Marketing Podcast.
Welcome again to the Business of Marketing. I'm A. Lee Judge. If you're in B2B and you're not paying attention to LinkedIn right now, you're falling behind. This platform isn't just a digital resume anymore. It's where real business happens. It's where buyers do research, where content drives conversations, and where brand visibility can actually move the needle. But here's the thing. Most people are using it wrong. They post, they hope, and they wonder why nothing's happening. Or worse, they copy what influencers do and attract engagement from the wrong crowd entirely. So in this episode, we're going to fix that. You're going to hear from someone who's built a career helping businesses grow through smart, intentional LinkedIn strategies. Someone who's coached teams, written the playbook, and continues to stay 5 steps ahead of where the platform is going. So stick around because this conversation could completely change how you show up on LinkedIn. Joining me today is the author of Maximizing LinkedIn for Business Growth, Neal Schaffer. Hey, Neal.
Hey, Lee. Thanks for that very, very kind intro. I'm really excited to be here today.
I'm excited to talk to you because, you and I spoke recently, and in that conversation, we began talking about LinkedIn, and so many things came up that I wanted to know from you and to dive deeper on. Sound like ChatGPT. I wanted to dive deeper and learn more about your views on LinkedIn, where we're going. I understand you have an updated version of this book coming soon, so maybe our conversation is timely, right?
I would hope so, yes.
Okay, so let's jump right in. The first question I have is, another business professional and I was recently talking about how we get engagement on LinkedIn. In fact, another person who was a LinkedIn guru was kind of schooling us on LinkedIn engagement, and because their posts were going almost viral each time. But after we researched a bit, we found out that person, they had tons of engagement, but it was from perhaps the wrong people. So the other person and I, who kind of felt like we weren't doing enough, realized that, like me, most of her LinkedIn connections were C-suite executives who weren't on LinkedIn every day and weren't always, posting as much. So my question to you is, how do B2B professionals ensure their message resonates with decision makers instead of just active users?
Yeah, so I guess I would first take a step back. Most, or I'd say an overwhelming majority of people are not posting regularly on LinkedIn. So maybe some people in the audience are like us and they want to know how to get to that next step. But I would take a step back and say, before you do anything, because the message has to be aligned with the profile. So to me, all roads lead back to your profile, and that's where I want to make sure that it is really optimized. Now, you may think your profile is optimized. You may have done it 3, 6, 9 months ago, but things change. Your career changes. If you're doing marketing, maybe your employer changed, or maybe the focus of your role or the focus of your product and services or industry targeting has changed. So I think it's, I always find myself, if I was to go in any given month, in my own profile, I'd find something to revise to make sure it is completely aligned. And obviously, you have the visual at the top. We call it the cover, headline image or cover photo. You have that headline, professional headline, and then you have your about section, and then your current experience. Those are the 4, I think critical areas just to make sure. Obviously, there's a featured section. So if there's some things you really want to promote, that would be the place to put it. Those are the sections that you really want to make sure that when you do this audit, and I would recommend quarterly, if not monthly, just to make sure it's all aligned, so that when you do create content and you do attract people, if you think of, I don't like to think of social media as a pipeline because, business comes from true relationships, not from managing people on Excel spreadsheets. But I understand the way that salespeople work as well with CRMs. So it really comes down to, that is the first part of that funnel of that engagement or relationship building exercise. Comes down to maybe they see the content, but if they want to go deeper, they're going to come to your profile. So I just wanted to point that out because in my book and in all my teachings, I always start with the profile. That is like your web page, right? If you don't have your own website, that's probably going to be your default professional website. So treat it as such.
Well, let's go deeper on the profile then. Recently, I used AI to examine my profile based on best practices from several people, including yourself, to say, hey, what should an ideal profile be like? Made a prompt based on best practices, had it review my profile, and as a result, I changed some things. I changed some images, I changed some about me, and I think that was a smart way to use AI for, updating my profile in LinkedIn. But a lot of folks are using AI for perhaps the wrong ways in the name of efficiency, but maybe not the best way. So let's talk about the ways that you can use AI for things, for not only your headline or your homepage, but other ways you can use AI, the good, the bad, and the ugly. What are some of the ways you see?
Yeah, so this is a section, I last wrote Maximizing LinkedIn for Business Growth in September of last year, and things change, right? And I think the AI technology and how we find ourselves using it more and we find ways of better using it has only grown as well. So this is a major area that I've been looking into. Even LinkedIn now, and I just actually upgraded from a free account to a professional account, and we can talk about why, but they even offer, AI built in to their paid account. So AI is not, you're not spamming people, you're not doing anything illegal, you're not cheating. It is part of mainstream business America right now, and the fact that LinkedIn provides it to you. So I think, the way that AI works, you were talking about prompts, Lee. I'm not a big prompt person. I'm a big, there was no instruction book when ChatGPT came out. It's just a simple, like, how can I help you type of thing. So I start out with a conversation. It's like, hey, I really want to improve my LinkedIn profile. These are my specialties. This is my target audience. This is the message that I really want to get across. Can you help improve it? And inevitably, the way that AI works in all this, so there are people who like sell ebooks of prompts. Like I said, have a natural conversation, but give it the context. So with the context, the other thing that AI needs to do anything right is training data. Now, we'll talk about content creation, because if you have your own podcast, you have training data. You can teach OpenAI and Claude how you speak, your tone, and that is going to be extremely beneficial in any content you create. But taking a step back, LinkedIn headline, LinkedIn about section, you probably don't have that training data. So what would you do if you didn't have the training data? If you didn't have AI, you'd probably look at some other profiles of people in your industry, thought leaders, influencers, authors, speakers, and you'd probably be inspired by what they wrote. And what we're doing with AI is we're doing the same thing. We're literally saying to AI, hey, these are the headlines that I really like. If you were to get I'm not a web designer. I know you're not either. I don't know if that's one of the things you provide. But when I've worked with web designers, they're like, okay, give me a few websites that you like, right? Or that you think are doing a good job. And they're going to use that as inspiration. Now they're probably going to use AI on the back end. But we're going to do the same thing with LinkedIn. We're going to now feed that into LinkedIn and say, hey, these are the headlines that I think are really effective. Or these are the headlines that I believe the top 10 people in my industry are using. Can you look for, what I always ask AI for is to look for similarities. AI is great at analysis. It's not just content creation. Look for patterns, look for similarities of these top headlines. And I assume that you would think they're top performing because the thought leaders are using them. And based on what you find there, please give me 10 ideas of how I can improve my headline. And that is the exact thing that I did to improve my own headline, right, a few weeks ago. So that would be the process that I recommend. You're not going to say, LinkedIn, write me a LinkedIn headline. You want to give it the context of, why, who's your target audience, your ICP, and all these things. What are you trying to achieve? But also that training data, so that, AI has tons of data, but with very, very specific training data, you're going to get a very, very specific response that's going to be really helpful. And those two concepts of context plus training data, that can be applied to anything you want to do with AI.
So what I'm hearing is, if you're, for example, a cybersecurity consultant, you want to look at some of the other top cybersecurity consultants' pages and perhaps combine what you see there, use AI to understand what's working, what they're doing, and then apply that to your own data, your own persona of yourself, and create a better homepage for yourself. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, you are basically being inspired by what you see and looking for ideas of how you can leverage what they're doing to improve your own headline. And that notion of you're in cybersecurity, you're looking at other cybersecurity experts. This is the type of context that just a standard AI tool won't give you. It's when you let it know, these are the people that I think my target audience are tuned into, right? So if they're already tuned into those people, they obviously have something going, and you want to try to replicate some of the things they're doing so that you can be at the same level, or at least your LinkedIn professional headline can be at that same level.
I think there's also a spectrum there from those who perhaps are just taking this advice, just hearing this advice now and starting on updating their LinkedIn profile, or those who don't have that kind of memory in their preferred AI. The other end of the spectrum is like myself. I've been training my GPTs since it came out in 2022, and it remembers things about me that I've forgotten, and it brings up things that I didn't think to bring up. And so through my analysis for my update, it says, oh, by the way, Lee, don't forget, you wrote a book last year. It was released earlier this year. Or you talk about this topic a lot, but it isn't in your about section. And it was able to help me refine it in ways that I had lost in my own human memory, but the ChatGPT memory had it. So I guess you start with either comparing yourself with others in your space and also combining that with whatever data you may already have of your own to contribute that context.
Yes. And, Lee, this is the promise of AI at work, machine learning, right? Always optimizing, always improving, always revising. Another thing you can add that I should have mentioned, and so thank you for the reminder, is based on everything that you know about me. Please provide me 10 ideas. Did I miss anything? Is there anything else I should have included? These questions, a lot of people will just naturally ask them at the end of every, prompt that they send. Those things can really be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I talk about two things a lot. It's sales and marketing alignment because of the book and because of my history working between sales and marketing, but I also have an agency that produced podcasts. And I was trying to make my profile one or the other. And AI reminded me, look, Lee, you are both of these things. Fix your profile to reflect those things. And it helped me find this thread between the two to make it better. So I really appreciate that advice from you. Marketers and sales leaders, if you want to close more deals and drive real revenue growth, you need cash. And I don't mean money. I'm talking about my new book, Cash, the 4 keys to better sales, smarter marketing, and a supercharged revenue machine. It gives you a proven framework to improve the 4 areas that impact revenue the most: communication, alignment, systems, and honesty. You need a stronger sales and marketing engine, and this book will show you how to build it. Get your copy now at aleejudge.com/cash. Now, back to the content.
Yeah. And, another book, I talk a little bit about it in LinkedIn, but I'm also working on a personal branding book, and I teach a course on it. And I often get asked that question. Like, I have an IT background, but I do insurance sales. And I say combine the two, because the definition of personal brand, it's unique. And it's differentiated. When people see it, they're immediately going to know it's you. So, but you need to find those threads. And AI it's infinitely creative. And if you ask enough questions and give it enough answers or give it enough information, it can really help inspire you to find those threads. So I'm really glad that you found that, Lee, because that's one of the most hardest things to do, because personal branding really is an art, especially when you're trying to combine 2 different things.
Well, I'm still working on it. It's a work in progress.
Man, life always is, isn't it?
Yeah. So we talked about the good and we talked about profiles. Let's talk about some of the ways people are using AI on LinkedIn. That is the bad and the ugly. Like some of the posting we see, some of the methods we're seeing for sales outreach. What are you seeing, and what's your advice on to make it not so bad and ugly?
Yeah, so I'm actually creating the chapter in the new revised book is probably going to be called the AI LinkedIn Playbook, right? So going through that, it starts with the profile, then we get to the content, and Lee, we're both heavy users of AI, but something tells me more and more people can gauge whether or not something was AI created. Okay, 2 years ago we couldn't, but you see that long, EM, that long dash, or this isn't just this long dash. It's let's dive in. There are certain things that it's very, very clear, and every line has an emoji, at the beginning. There are certain things that we're beginning to see that it was AI generated, and that sort of takes away immediately. We're going to block it out or just think it was AI generated, and it loses the potential impact that it could have. So it's not about just, and obviously there's other, bad things, but I think that the AI, clearly AI posts, things that you don't even have expertise or experience on. Because, it's funny, I once interviewed someone who has one of these AI tools specifically for LinkedIn content, and it can make you look like an expert, right? And I'm like, well, do your users actually like publish this content generated from AI as is? And he goes, you know what, Neal, to be honest with you, probably 50% of our customers do. So the AI will generate like based on my experience, based on my 20 years working with, but it's all made up. So there are people that are saying things because now they're able to say it really cool in a good way with AI. It makes them look good, but they really don't have anything to back that up. So that's obviously the other thing, that you only want to talk about your own unique experiences, your own expertise, what have you. The other one is like the LinkedIn comments. So I'm starting to get like the same people commenting in every post, and they have emojis and they often end with a question at the end. What do you think is the most important advice? And it's like, dude, I wrote a blog post, recorded a podcast. You're asking me for more information, but they're trying to get more engagement from you, right? For the algorithm. So, those are two areas where there is I think, responsible way of using AI as an assistant to help you create content based on the ideas that you already have that you want to flesh out, or repurposing your other content into LinkedIn content. We can talk about some of that, but AI does not replace you. And that is basically, whether it's content creation or comments, when you're just using AI as a fast, efficient way of trying to replace you and do more with less, I think people are going to be able to read through that really, really quickly, and I don't think it's going to be effective. So, then we have the whole automated outreach. There's another set of LinkedIn tools that will automate, here's a LinkedIn search result. We'll send out, 100 invites. When you accept, immediately send you, hey, I'm just curious, over at nealschaffer.com, what do you guys do when you run out of appointments? How would you feel if I was able to get you 25 appointments per day or something ridiculous, right? I just block those people left and right. Like and it gets to the point where I just don't accept their invites because I think they're just trying to sell me. In fact, going back to the professional headline, if your professional headline just looks like a billboard for you to sell people on stuff, they're not going to connect with you in the first place, right? So, don't be that person. Don't be in hyper sales mode. It's relationship building, it's networking. And if you forget that, you're just not going to be that effective as you could be.
Well, something you said a moment ago, I wanted to go back to, because we do tend to have our AI written radar on a lot, those of us who use AI a lot. And you can tell who is a new user to AI and those who have been a bit more seasoned, like us, who are using it in terms of writing content. Anybody who falls for the overuse of emojis, that's like they're just started like this month using AI. Like it's freshman level.
Newbie.
But at the same time, there are a lot of AI haters who are calling out people for things that are just traditional grammar. For example, when you were describing that, you did say it's not just, and that was your natural language. I say it. When I was writing my book, I said it. And I often found myself going back and removing it out of fear that
I hear you.
Right?
Yeah.
I write with M dashes. Now I undo M dashes. And if you write it in Microsoft Word, that's your settings. I typically go space dash space, but then it will correct it into an M dash. And I just let it go because I figure, okay, that's fine. It's an M dash. And M dashes have gone back as far as probably Shakespeare. It's in traditional writing. And I had to look up the phrase, when you go, it's not just, it's that, it's called a comparative phrase. And the reason I know this is because I looked it up to say, how do I tell ChatGPT to never do that again? Like, do not do comparative phrases. But again, that's graduating from freshman to sophomore to senior user of ChatGPT. So I hope that our listeners don't get to the point where they're, super sensitive about finding or criticizing those who use AI. But I think the criticism should be pointed towards those who haven't leaned into it enough to understand how it can help them write as opposed to write for them. Does that make sense?
I mean, the people that use it to replace themselves, that's the bad way of using it. The people who use it to assist where you don't know, that AI was even involved. I mean, that's where we're all going. If you have the Grammarly Chrome extension, you're already there, right? So the M dash is interesting because I'm a big fan of it, and I used it a lot in digital threads, not AI generated. So I think it's only when it's used in that context, because there are other ways of using the M dash. Like, I was told by some people that My LinkedIn professional headline sucked, M dash, and these people were LinkedIn experts themselves, M dash, which prompted me, that's probably not correct grammarly, but I think you get the picture that there are other use case scenarios. So I did finally, very recently, I started saying, please rewrite this without using the M dash or any other phrases that would sound like it came from an AI tool like ChatGPT. And it understood that and it rephrased it back to me. I wish I had copied and pasted it in a way that it knew that that was happening. So if anyone's listening, you should definitely try to add some language like that and see what it says in response and cut and paste that and then put that into your knowledge base or future GPTs.
It works sometimes. ChatGPT is hard-headed.
It's not as consistent. I think it'll get there, but yeah.
Get there. If you're a marketer struggling to create content that's truly unique to your brand, here's the key. Your experts and executives are your most valuable content assets. Conversational content like videos and podcasts featuring your team stand out above all other content. So, instead of creating content that sounds just like your competition, start leveraging the unique voices inside your company. Thought leaders and authentic conversations build credibility and engagement. At Content Monsta, we specialize in remote content production, meaning we coach your people to be comfortable on camera, then we capture and produce high-quality videos and podcasts featuring your team and customers. No need for expensive production crews, long production plans, or complex setups. Want to see how it works? Visit contentmonsta.com today to learn more. Well, let's change gears a moment because there's something that I use a lot and I bring to my clients that have helped them increase their engagement a lot, like instantaneously, and that's LinkedIn newsletters. I have one when I first launched it back then, it's been a couple of years probably, they would tell your entire network that you had a LinkedIn newsletter. And so I have literally probably 4,000 or 5,000 subscribers that came in day one. So, I know if you do that now, you have to struggle to get that many subscribers, but back then you could just start one. As with everything with LinkedIn, if you get in early, they will push that thing. So what are your views on LinkedIn newsletters today? And maybe some advice for those who are thinking about doing a LinkedIn newsletter.
Yeah. So the step 3, once we get through, the profile, actually the step 2, my apologies, the profile, the content would come next. And the amazing thing about LinkedIn, back in the day, we could say the same thing about Instagram for those that remember. There were Instagram lives. There was IGTV for those who remember. There were videos and there were static images, and then there were carousel images. These days, I think Meta has just said, if it's a video, it's just going to be a reel. And, Instagram Live is now just a story, basically. So on most networks like TikTok, it's pretty much only one type of content. I mean, you can do a live, but it's pretty much just the reel. LinkedIn is very different. And I think this is where, and we were talking, Lee, the other day, for us, OG LinkedIners, we've been used to, posting links and stuff like that. And it's really changed over the last, decade. And I'd say the workforce now is a majority millennials, as far as I know. So, the taste of the average user on LinkedIn changes over time with every generation. So when you combine that with the fact that there are a variety of formats that you can use on LinkedIn more than any other platform, and I think if you really want to get ahead, you really need to be publishing content in all sorts of different formats. Newsletter is another type of format. We know that link posts do not do well. And people will try to put links in the first comment. And at the end of the day, every social network wants you to stay on their platform. This comes from Digital Threads, this other book that I wrote last year. So if you really want to get seen in the algorithm, and if you're not seen in the algorithm, why create content in the first place? You need to adapt to the network. And we're going back to what I call the link in bio approach, the hope that when people see your content, they go back to your profile and they want to contact you. And maybe they go to your website from there. So that's where we're at. So the newsletter is one of these types of content. If you're curious, we have newsletter, we have polls, we have short form video, we have live stream video, LinkedIn Live. We have images, we have image carousels, which are multiple images. We have carousel posts, which are PDFs. We have text, we have link only. I think that's like 9 different varieties of content we can be creating. Mm-hmm. Most marketers that have been doing this a while, or salespeople, they basically just, maybe they've only done 2 or 3 of them. But where we're seeing a lot of activity is in the newsletter, I've had some people say the polls are coming back. They were really big a year or two ago, then they died down, but you never know. Text only posts, the kind of thing you see on Twitter that sort of goes viral. And did I mention carousels? And then obviously images, right? And the image is the hard one. Unless you have lots of photos and you have a lot of inspirational things to say and a lot of memories or experiences, I can only post a photo like that when I'm, teaching a class in Vietnam and taking a picture with the students, or speaking at an event, right? Or, on a call with customers. We do so much remotely now. I know with like Riverside, you can actually take snapshots, which is cool. But so what I find then, looking at my own editorial calendar, is I'm looking at a lot of text only posts. I'm looking at carousels, which I'm just started to invest in. I just hired someone off Fiverr. I actually hired 2 different people off Fiverr with the same project description to see what sort of work I'm going to get. But I'm excited about that because I see that is another thing that these new generation of LinkedIn influencers, it is something that they, that a type of content that they publish a lot about. And then newsletters are up there as well. I think for virality, it's more on the carousel. It's more on the image, and it's more on the text. But the idea here, Lee, if we remember social media, things that get shared are most viral. And things used to not get shared on LinkedIn. And if you have a picture of yourself, with a customer, chances are it's not going to get shared. But carousels get shared. And I think that's why that content goes really viral, is if you create something that people would want to share. So it's a different mindset altogether. First, we need to make it for the platform so that people want to stay on the platform. So it can't be a direct sell, but then we want to make it so it's universal enough that other people would want to republish it on their own platform and share it. And if you can do that, right, whether it's text or image or carousel or newsletter, that's really the secret to be able to get a lot more success, because with the shares, you get more visibility, you get more newsletter subscribers, more followers, and it feeds upon itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I'm sure anybody who's listening to this right now is thinking, but Neal, what about video? Like, that's what LinkedIn is really loving right now. And in fact, yesterday, I noticed, I don't know if you've seen this yet, I have a For You tab on my LinkedIn app. Do you have that yet?
I don't have the For You. They've had a video tab for a while, for the last several months. Is it now For You? I'm going to check it as we speak right now.
Well, here's the thing. When I saw it, I didn't know if the label was new or if the feature was new and it had a new label, because it says For You and it says News, which I was like, wait a minute, I have 2 tabs now, a For You tab and a News tab.
Yeah, I don't have that yet, but yeah.
So that surprised me, which tells me the For You tab is strictly video. And so we've been hearing that LinkedIn is going to go heavy on video, although I hear that, I see that, but I don't know how much more weight it's been getting than the other formats you just mentioned. At least for me, I'm a video fanatic. I'm video first. I'd rather do video than anything else. But at the same time, I don't see this exponential lift in video over the other formats. And I still stick to the rule of having a variety of formats versus just one. What do you think?
You're absolutely right. And yes, I specifically did not mention that. In fact, every week, Lee, I am analyzing the top 30, basically the top 10% of my posts over the last year. And I'm using that to inform my my strategy. And I find right now that newsletters and texts are the ones doing best. Now, it's going to be different with every person, and every network is going to respond differently. So your results might vary. Yes, there are a few people that have done really well with short form video. I find it to be low performing. In fact, I find my LinkedIn Lives to be so low performingly based on our recording and all the snafus we went through. I decided I'm not going to waste a publishing slot on LinkedIn Lives anymore, because not one appears in my top 10%, right? Even though I've interviewed some thought leaders like yourself and what have you. So we always need to be adjusting. It's always changing, but that's what I see. But I know I'm missing out on carousels, which is why I want to start including that in the mix on a weekly basis. The 2 that do the worst are link-based posts and videos. And these are short form videos like you would see. So, the For You and the following, this is what X did when Elon Musk took it over, right? And the For You became the standard until you realized there was another tab. So it sounds like LinkedIn is sort of copying that. They understand the video is the future. Maybe a lot of people in the younger audience primarily watch the videos, but I am with you, Lee. I have yet to see, and I know that there are people in my network that have done really well, but even someone that did really well no longer does well. And she's trying to figure out why. So it is very fickle. It's not, I just don't think there's enough people creating video content and consuming it for it to become like a TikTok. But maybe a year or two from now, it'll change, which is why, if you have an editorial calendar, I'm trying to publish daily. I would still include one a week and really gauge. If that picks up, I think you'll see it. I would not do more than twice a week at this point. But I was only doing one newsletter a week until I found that I was getting, I was getting lots of engagement, lots of comments. And every weekly, I get more new subscribers in my newsletter than I do on my own email list with ConvertKit. So, and then I realized, Lee, you can actually, and I tell this to my clients as well on the fractional CMO side, you can actually go into your newsletter and look at your subscribers. It'll say how many subscribers you have if you click on it. And now, Lee, this is like part 4 of the AI. It's not an AI LinkedIn playbook, but a LinkedIn playbook. It's sort of the follow-up. It's sort of like, hey, if you see a second, third degree connection, thanks for subscribing to my newsletter. And in fact, most new subscribers are second or third degree. I have some free review copies of Maximizing LinkedIn for Business Growth. Can I send you one? Starting a conversation, giving some value, and seeing where that goes. It's another entryway, into this relationship funnel. So yeah, newsletters are great. As you say, the first time or two, it sends it out to everybody, but after that, your growth stops only until you continuously publish. And you need to decide. At one point, I was copying and pasting my weekly ConvertKit newsletter over to LinkedIn. It was a hassle because of the formatting and everything. What I've started to do, Lee, and I'm sure you do something similar, is I'm repurposing my podcast episodes. Sometimes I repurpose a blog post, but I'm heavily using AI to repurpose my ideas into something short and snackable that LinkedIn prefers. I'm aiming for like 500 to 700 words, whereas my blog posts are 2,000 words. Mm-hmm. I'm including either a video if it's an interview, or I'm including a Spotify play button if it is just me solo podcast. And I'm also using that as a way to internally link to some of my blog posts for SEO. And at the very bottom, I have a cut and paste. Hey, consider hire me to speak at your next event, or click here if you want to talk about my fractional CMO services. Buy digital threads. So I think that a newsletter can serve a lot of different areas, and it is something that most people are missing out on. So if there's one takeaway outside of that profile revision, it would be to start to see how you can include newsletters. And if you can include newsletters on a weekly basis, then you could repurpose that into a 5, 6, 7, 8 page carousel to get more activity. And this is what I'm finding. The influencers that are creating carousels also have a text blog post, a text post, or maybe an image post. They're repurposing that content into different formats, which is another best practice in the business of marketing right there. So hopefully that answers, the question about videos, as well as the, why I'm still excited about newsletters.
I think LinkedIn has an algorithmic identity crisis right now. And let me explain what I mean by that. Is that the things that we can measure the best, because we don't know how they're exactly measuring what they call an impression or a view or whatever. The thing is, from a statistical standpoint, yes, my carousels do better, my newsletter does great, but they're also claiming they're pushing video. So I'm not going to give up on video, even though based on the measurement they give us, it says that my videos aren't doing as well. Now, on the other side of that, from a standpoint of soft measurements, in terms of I see people commenting more and I hear about the videos that I produce, it's almost as if I can hear in the real world more feedback on the videos that I post than on anything else that I post, whether it be, written or carousel or newsletter. So something's going on that I don't think we're able to see because of statistics. And what I mean by the algorithmic identity crisis is that how can LinkedIn sustain its stance as a social network for business when it's adding a For You? Because For You is not a social graph, it's the interest graph. And so LinkedIn can't become an interest graph based network if it's going to also be the business network platform. So I think that we have two problems. One, what is it? Is it a networking platform or is it a social platform? And two, I don't know if the numbers we're getting that reports on how well each platform does, I don't have trust in their accuracy. So we'll see where
Yeah,
that goes.
as data driven as we'd like to be as marketers, at the end of the day, there's anecdotal data, there's gut feel, and that's important to consider when talking about this, right? I don't have that anecdotal evidence of videos doing well, and I know that they're pushing them, but at the end of the day, like I said, different. Maybe my connections are a little bit older. They're not on TikTok. They're not even on Instagram. They're just on Facebook. They don't respond to videos. Maybe if I was a younger creator with a younger, clientele, they respond more to videos. So I think that it's LinkedIn future-proofing their content. And I believe, Lee, at the end of the day, it's all going interest media, right? Even over the last year or two, I like to say that LinkedIn is the most viral platforms because go into your feed, not your For You feed, but your following feed or connection feed. And you'll see there's a lot of posts. It's like so-and-so liked this, so-and-so commented on this, right? So they're exposing, or they've been exposing second, third degree connection content in your feed for a while now. And to me, Lee, it's supply demand, that there is just not enough supply of good enough content. So similar to Instagram saying, you know what, if there's not enough good content, let's just do reels and make sure that people want to come back because maybe their friends suck at creating good content. But if we can if we know their interests and we get them hooked, right, through these great content creators, and I think LinkedIn is doing what every other social network has done. Now, the problem with just believing that, hey, publish more videos, what have you, is that all these platforms change. And if any of you have ever done any marketing on Pinterest, where it's like, please use hashtags. Oh, hashtags don't matter anymore. We're going to do stories. LinkedIn had stories, no more, right? We're going to do idea pins. Oh, let's just call them videos. And LinkedIn has done the same. I mean, they had events. They took events away for a while. Groups used to be one of the main, tabs, and now it's not there anymore. They go through so many changes. So, I highly suggest the data-driven approach. Anecdotally, yes, we hear about videos doing well, and I know someone on my network personally that has gotten hundreds of thousands of views, not recently, but up to like a few months ago. So yes, I'm going to keep sort of stabbing away at it. But like I said, if you have a faceted content format approach, it helps you mitigate your risk, and you can have more of a data-driven strategy to see what's working, what's not.
I'm with you there. So one thing about engagement I want to ask you about, because that's one thing we all can agree on, is that if you've been on LinkedIn more than a year or two, you've seen engagement go down drastically. What are your thoughts on some of the causes of that? I'm wondering if it's, maybe the content that you're publishing, maybe LinkedIn is not favoring that as much. Maybe your demographic doesn't match. Like I mentioned earlier, my demographic is typically management and up. So maybe me doing videos, even if videos was the thing, maybe me doing videos doesn't fit that demographic. So is engagement drop, do you think it's more algorithmic, or do you think has more to do with the individual who's making the content?
Yeah, I think that there's a few reasons why engagement drops. First is global, right? It's supply demand, pure simple. There's more people, when you hear these 20-somethings going, oh, Instagram's dying, but LinkedIn's the hot place. And you see these new people coming and creating that sort of videos and what have you, that's obviously more supply, and it's good content supply. So I think there's more supply of people that are publishing content, and there's more supply of people that are publishing good content. So it sort of raises that bar for all of us, unfortunately. There's also the algorithm. So if your connections are engaging with other people's content, it's going to show up more in the feed. I mean, I go through a regular process of pruning my connections because I find people that I connect with back in 2008 or 9 that we have never had a conversation. And when I look at their job title, I don't see any, I would never accept an invite from them today because I was more of an open networker back in the day. So I find myself disconnecting to try to keep new blood in my networks that might be actually interested in my content. So, so there's a combination of things. People retire, people change jobs. So I think as marketers, we always need to be getting new people onto our email list, into our LinkedIn connections, and that will also help us with, the engagement. And I will say, Lee, since I started doing what I'm doing, when I look at those top 30 posts, and I do this on a weekly basis, I'm starting to see posts that I published in the last week or two show up in my top 10% over the last 365 days. So I don't think it's necessarily a case that globally engagement's dropping. And I think that you can recover a lot of that. I will say, now I don't do this, and I don't know if I'm going to write about it in my book, but But I will tell you what I've heard other of these LinkedIn influencers doing, which is using a data scraping tool. I prefer Phantom Buster if you were to try this, and basically finding people that like and comment on similar content. So in other words, these LinkedIn influencers are getting a lot of likes and a lot of comments. Well, who are those people? Maybe 90% are in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. I don't know. But maybe 50% are in the United States and we don't know them. But if we can find who those people are and we can follow them and maybe connect with them if there's relevance, these are hyperactive people. It's sort of like if you were to do a Facebook ad without targeting, you're probably going to get a lot of people from India, Kenya, Philippines, Indonesia, countries where they just like everything they see, right? It's just part of the culture, especially Philippines from what I hear. So I think that there are also people on LinkedIn. I mean, there is one other influencer. When I do analysis of all these LinkedIn influencers that I'm not connected to, I find the same person is engaging with all their content, right? Which probably increases the chance that maybe she gets more engagement. So if you really want to take it to, it might be creepy by some, but if you really want to try to growth hack your way, that would be my suggestion is do some analysis. If you could find, 5 different posts that have 5,000 or 1,000 likes that are in your industry and you put them through Phantom Buster and then you see of those 1,000 likes of those 5 posts, are there 100, 200 people that are liking all 5 of them? Well, now you know who are like the hyperactive engagers on LinkedIn, and maybe you should pay a little bit of attention to them. So this is something I've yet to experiment, Lee. It's like when I was preparing for the call, I'm like, I need to bring my best, to Lee's podcast and everything I'm working on, all of my R&D. That is something I know that some influencers have been doing. They do that to connect with people. Like, hey, I saw your comment on Gary Vaynerchuk's post. Isn't he great? I actually inspired by Gary Vaynerchuk, I actually have a new webinar coming out, jab, jab, hook, hook approach to LinkedIn. Why don't you join me? It's completely free. And they'll use that as a way to get people into their funnel. So a lot of different use case scenarios, might be a little creepy for some, but if you really want to do this growth hacking where throw out all the creepiness and what can I do to try to improve things, I would definitely try to experiment with that.
I will, with caution, because I wonder, I decided about a month ago, I don't need many more followers. I need connections. I need people who I relate to. But what I mean by I don't need followers is that sometimes people who I could have envied, I look at their follower list and it's a bunch of people who, like you said, just like everything. I'm like, if there's a 20-year-old coder in Pakistan who likes everything, we'll probably never do business together. And this is a business platform. I'm not there just for social. And sometimes I see people who have tons of engagement, and most all of their engagement are those types of people who are just liking. They're students and never will do any business with them. And I'm like, you know what? I don't need that kind of engagement. Now, if I can get, my target audience to connect, I'm always looking to connect with more people more like-minded people who are potential customers or potential thought leaders or peers that I can talk to and learn from and grow with. Even students who are maybe in the U.S. who I can help mentor or whatever. People who can be have meaningful relationships with. And so I realized, I have about 23,000 connections, and most of them are at a certain level. So a lot of them, especially the C-suite, they're not going to engage a lot. So I realized, okay, it's okay, Lee, not to get 10,000 likes on something because there's not 10,000 CEOs who are online today liking stuff on LinkedIn. So it makes sense.
No, you're absolutely right. And like I said, maybe of those 200 people you find, maybe 5 or 10 are hyper relevant. Like when I look at people that subscribe to my newsletter, I'm not sending out connections to everybody because there are a lot of irrelevant people. I don't know why. Why is this person subscribed to my newsletter? Like if I don't see the relevance and potential value, I'm not going to send the connection request. So there is a way to filter that. But I will say, Lee, looking at it 2 ways, you're absolutely right. It's like the ultimate scoreboard is not how many likes you get, but how much business you get, right? And we'll never know. But I will say from an algorithmic perspective that when you get more engagement, it tends to become more visible in the feed of your connections, right? The other thing I will say is, I'm a LinkedIn author. I'm not getting the types of likes that those other people are getting. They have immediate social proof because as human animals, we see lots of likes. We assume that there is value there. So, I agree 100%. It can't be meaningless. we don't want to chase vanity metrics, but if we think our content is as good as theirs and we have a target audience, why can't we be getting similar visibility? And if you take it from that aspect, is there some growth hacking I do? Who are these people? Could they become potential partners, people that I can mentor, or, what have you? If you just, part of it's mindset, man. Just have a new mindset looking at LinkedIn, and it might uncover some new ways of working out there.
That's a great way to end that, Neal. So before we go, I want to mention your books, because you have the one we're talking about now. Tell us about the one you're talking about now, and then we'll get into the one that's behind you there on the shelf. But the one you're working on now, a new version, give us a title and when can we expect it?
Yeah, so Maximizing LinkedIn for Business Growth is available on Amazon. It is ebook only. And I believe with Kindle, even if I revise it, I believe your library gets updated. Correct me if I'm wrong. So it's going to be the same book, the same title. The cover will say revised for 2025, 26, included expanded information about AI, what have you. So if you want to be sure, in the next version, we'll have a paperback, hardback. I wrote 2 books on LinkedIn back in 2009 and 2011, which I never revised. And I've always had a free ebook that I send out to clients, and I have it on my website as a lead magnet. And I've had so many people say, Neal, this is amazing. This is like a book in itself. I decided, you know what? I'm going to repurpose it into a full book, which I did. And now I'm going to continue to expand that from ebook only to paperback, hardback, audio. And then the other book, that was published September 17, 2024. The other book is based on my fractional CMO work because I've always had 2 sides. Like you have 2 sides, Lee. I have this like social selling, LinkedIn training side, LinkedIn blogger. And then I have my fractional CMO side, which covers all of digital marketing. So Digital Threads is the other book, came out October 1st, 2024.
Got my copy right here.
Thank you, my friend. It is a digital marketing playbook. And I cover, when we were talking about the best way to use LinkedIn, of being authentic to the platform and keeping people on the platform. This is exactly the approach that I teach in that book as well when I talk about social media. But I also talk about email marketing and SEO and AI and really a digital marketing playbook, not for people that are just going to go and hire an agency or big enterprises with big budgets, but really for small businesses and entrepreneurs who want to they want to DIY it. They want to be able to. I have a dedicated chapter on hiring people on like Fiverr and Upwork to help you with your tasks. So it's really geared towards that small business owner with a very, very tight budget. So hopefully you'll find a good read in either or both of those books.
All right. Well, great. Well, give us your website and spell it. So there's lots of ways to spell Schaffer.
Yes, indeed. I have many social media cousins out there. It is a Neal Schaffer, so I'm the real Neal. Don't do the Starbucks misspell. It's Neal. And the last name is Schaffer, SCHAFFER.com, on social, on Amazon. I also have a podcast called Your Digital Marketing Coach with Neal Schaffer, which you can find on Apple as well.
All right. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Neal. And to the listeners, if you're listening to the podcast, I also want to see Neal and I, a video of the podcast and others are available in the podcast section of ContentMonsta.com. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Business of Marketing podcast, a show brought to you by ContentMonsta.com, the producer of B2B digital marketing content. Show notes can be found on ContentMonsta.com, as well as aleejudge.com.